Alrighty, well, welcome everybody. Super excited to have you all here. My name is Sadel Turbovsky. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Open Grants, and we are going to get started in just a minute. We're going to let folks come through the virtual doors, so to speak, and get all spun up. But yeah, once again, my name is Sadel Turbovsky. I am the CEO and co-founder of Open Grants, and just super excited to have you all here. We're going to be discussing lab to market commercialization of climate technologies. So for those of you who have not attended our webinars before, or just as a reminder, this will be recorded. It will be published over to YouTube and on our blog, and it will be available afterwards. We'll send a follow-up email with links to the recording, as well as any good and useful links that come up during our conversation today. So we are super excited to be here with Megan Holcomb, who is the COO and head of technology at Labstart. And I'm going to let Megan introduce herself, and then we'll get into our discussion today.
Awesome. Thanks for this opportunity to chat with you and your Open Grants world here. So I'm Megan, and I am a part of the small and mighty Labstart team. Labstart is a nonprofit that really came together and was built to help streamline the commercialization of climate technologies. So we've emerged from a few pilot cohorts, and we're now launching our full program in 2024 with a year-long cohort. But really, our team set out to kind of reimagine the lab to market commercialization process in a way that opens accessibility, inclusion, really makes it more friendly for entrepreneurs to engage with this process, and helps accelerate innovations out from our research institutions, labs, national labs, universities, or otherwise. And I'm happy to go into a little bit of my background. I think it's worth, as far as framing this conversation, I do not actually consider myself an expert in the field of tech transfer or commercialization, but I came into this realm. I have spent a lot of time in high conflict and high risk negotiations, and really building consensus and collaboration in institutions where it didn't exist before. So this has been a really fun project to engage. Really, up until now in my career, most of my work has been in the context of transboundary topics, where there's either entire states or countries that are reluctant to emit or are forced to better manage resources and really refine their institutional processes. So we're going to get into like the fun nitty gritty of all the institutional framework around tech transfer, but it's very translatable, and I'm comfortable in these kind of overly regulated spaces. And so that's where I'm coming from. My two team members are also on the call here, Deepa and Troy, and they may engage in the Q&A session if questions pop up that they're best equipped for. So yeah, where do you want to start, Sadil?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will start just with a note for all of our wonderful participants that we do have chat quite locked down for everyone's safety and convenience. So if you do have questions, please just use the Q&A. We will be answering and doing a Q&A session towards the end of our discussion, but feel free to drop those in at any time. As mentioned, there's some great team members on the call as well who can answer some of those ahead of time. So if you have any burning questions, just dump them in the Q&A, and then we will get to them, or the right person or the appropriate person will address them. You said a few things that I think are really interesting and funny. One of like, you have all this experience in these high conflict spaces, and I think that's a funny way to characterize tech transfer and accurate. So let's talk a little bit about just like top
Sure.
line, like what is tech transfer? And what are these national labs that you speak of? Because I know that I was a full graduated, didn't graduate, but dropped out of college, left the whole like academia ecosystem, and I had never heard of any national labs until I started doing work in the climate space as a consultant. So can you just give like a quick rundown of like what is this lab infrastructure that you speak of, and then maybe a little bit on tech transfer itself?
Sure. So the U.S. has a whole suite of national laboratories that really operate the R&D budget for the feds. And throughout the country, there are 17 different national labs that the Department of Energy operates, which focus on a huge array of basic science and engineering questions. And these labs have spurred innovation and particular like specific technology developments for over 70 years. So the technology transfer process is a whole really encompasses a lot, but it's really the discoveries that are born or like unearthed in these institutions have a chance, because it's public dollars, it's public investment, it is open research, to really leave the lab, leave the research world, and then make impacts in the marketplace. But that process of moving from ideation to lab, proof of concept, all of that into the marketplace is not quite fluid after all this time. And honestly, the general response that I've gotten from colleagues as I've started to engage with this process are deep sighs, a bit of like cynical, jaded laughter, a lot of tongue-in-cheek, like good luck statements. So for whatever weird reason, that seems to fuel me to dig a bit deeper. And there's two terms I'll just like quickly define. I think it would be helpful for framing the conversation. But moving research from lab to market is all nested like under this process of technology transfer agreements. And technology commercialization and technology transfer are related concepts, but they refer to different stages in the cycle of turning research into innovation, into product that the market could actually engage with. So the primary objective of tech transfer is to move this laboratory or research innovation into the commercial sector, where it can be then further refined. And that happens through a transfer of knowledge, intellectual property. It can happen through cooperative R&D agreements. And it involves the cooperation of not just a business person and the researcher, but also agency officials called tech transfer officials and other people associated with the lab. So technology commercialization is a different part of the process that is, longer, if probably longer, hopefully, than the tech transfer process, to actually create value out of the technology by bringing it to the marketplace. And that involves more of creating the new business, licensing agreements, partnerships, and really anything related to product development, market analysis, business planning, actually building value out of that thing. So in summary, like, tech transfer is really a crucial initiation step before the full commercialization pathway. And kind of why, like where we're engaging, where Labstart's engaging in this process is that actually many stages. So we could probably go ahead.
I think one thing to talk about here real quickly is, so there's this tech transfer process that is fraught, let's just say.
Yeah, we could spend a whole conversation on problems.
Yes. And I, as a consultant, I played a lot in that space as well. And I think one thing that would be really interesting or compelling for folks listening, hopefully, is that there's something like, all right, so there's this very fraught, awful process, maybe not so awful. Hopefully we'll talk about that. But like, why would you want to do it? Like, why wouldn't you just invent your own thing or do your own thing? And I do think, one of the things that I got really psyched about when we were building Open Grants is we actually started by scraping like all the data that we could find. And we ended up with like this big repository of technology transfer licenses, which was super interesting to look at, because I think a lot of people maybe don't know or don't appreciate, like, in the vein of climate or what have you, like any like technological vein, the US government and the federal government has like all these incredible bits and pieces of things that you could use to solve really complex problems.
Right.
And so if you can like set apart, let's just say it was easy to get them. I mean, that'd be really neat, right? So I think, as an entrepreneur, if you haven't yet, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because it is something I wanted to talk about, like, how can entrepreneurs like start to get excited about this space? Like, is there a place they can go look at these licenses? Is this something that Labstart can help them with? Like,
Yep.
Can we talk a little bit about just like that part of the process? Because we're gonna get into like the rest of it, but
Sure.
I'd love to like help people understand like, because I got super excited. I was looking at this, I was like, oh man, like you could, I don't know, there's like these nanotube technologies for better batteries, and there's like all this stuff for like flight, and like there's so much stuff in these labs.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm curious. I love that you got excited about digging through all of those. I'm going to share a link that I kind of had ready. That's a really good resource after this to better understand like what is available to search for. But really, it was like July 2018 that the Department of Energy launched something called Lab Partnering Services, which was like very overdue but radical solution that was essentially a platform to search every patent, every specialist in a particular field to even begin to see like what are the labs working on. So all of the billions of dollars that are poured into R&D through the National Lab Vehicle, that is that is an investment in the country's innovation. And so all of those findings, all of that research is available, and there's up until this search engine, it was really fragmented as how anyone could actually follow what lab is working on what topics, or what the cutting edge research really is, or who works there. And you really had to be in a narrow field and track particular researchers to follow the like edge of innovation. And so now there's this incredible resource that any individual, if you have a super nerdy interest in a particular I don't know, packaging thing or market, whatever it is, that market that you're interested in related to climate, you can go and search through all of these different tags and keywords, innovations that have been patented and are available for license through this service. And, I'd recommend there's also, it's not just the patents, it's the, the scientists and the labs that you can contact through this page. So this is a really great place to start when people have either a passion and an idea that they're working on, to go search what patents might be available that you can engage in the licensing process to build your business around and build your entire a potential product around these things. So it ranges from very small minor changes to a chemical process to actual like tangible products, but it's a really good place to start, to not just like spark your own imagination, but also see like what's out there that might be a lot more than an incremental shift in the market, but might be a big impact if someone just finds it and gets excited about it and wants to build a whole business around it.
I love that. Awesome. So I think one of the questions that a lot of founders and innovators will probably have is like, is there any sort of standardization for these like deals, and what do they typically look like? Like, do you end up like, are you going to own the whole thing? You end up paying a bunch of money? Like, I would love to talk through that first, and then like maybe get into some of just like the challenges with making that happen.
Sure.
But removing ourselves from the challenges and some of the ways that you could solve them, what do these typically look like? And do you have any like favorite examples of companies that have successfully, done some lab to market commercialization?
Yeah, this whole topic is somewhere that I am excited to dig into more. So as far as a bunch of examples, I don't have anything like top of mind. We can talk about entrepreneurs that we've assisted through this process, but it's what we've found, and part of the reason that Labstart kind of came to be was a realization by working within the DOE commercialization process. There's not a consistent way to move through the licensing process from lab to lab. So it is different for each lab in a way that's there's not our team talks about like creating a playbook for people to be able to engage. That playbook might look different from one lab to another. And over time, if we really engage in, these institutions and policy making, we might be able to streamline, like you're working on with open grants, streamline kind of how that all looks to the marketplace. But right now it's quite different. And there are, the general process of licensing. It's really, you find a patent, the lab discovers something new, creates a patent. That patent's identified by someone who has interest in it. Whether that's a large company or an individual, there's a negotiation that happens with the technology transfer officers to come to an agreement on how that patent can be used, for how long, for how much. And there's, a lot of the, like, so I would say like fracturing or like stunted processes that that folks might find when they engage with this is because for a long time, it was so much easier for large companies to engage in this process. They have a lot more money. They can just say, here's $1 million, let me play with your invention. And yeah, we'll figure it out. And that's very appealing to the labs. There's not a ton of incentive built into the process for these tech transfer offices to market these patents, to really engage. It's once it gets to patent, there's essentially a buildup, this whole library that's been built up, that there's not a ton of internal incentive in these institutions to move it beyond. So it was really up for grabs on what companies had enough, people, resources to even sit there and find them. And so what Labstart's working on doing is creating this protected, essentially a full year paid fellowship to engage in this process and search and find technologies that are the market needs right now, the climate innovations that could exist, and actually support an individual with enough space and resources to see if there's commercialization potential there. If that makes sense. So it's it's not a immediate aha moment that you see a patent and how it's going to fit in the marketplace. That takes a lot of exploration. And for individuals, especially underserved individuals, to engage in that process, they need the time and the finances to do so.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for that rundown. I think so there's obviously some misaligned incentives, and now we have this, culture where large corporations are just not doing the R&D the way they used to, right? They're going and buying startups. They're just not doing that anymore. And so there's this vast unused resource of patents and lab tech that's just not being, leveraged to its potential. What are y'all doing about that? I'd love to, I think maybe we've kind of talked about why it's exciting, and we've talked about what those deals might look like, which is sort of like,
depends on who you talk to. Yeah.
And so finally, all right, so I'm a founder. What are your general tips for founders and folks who are trying to break into this space? What should you look for? Maybe your top 3 or 4 points of how do you do this?
Absolutely. And a lot of these tips and tricks are, this is what we're trying to build into the Labstart model to really experiment and see, do these work. But I think first and foremost, it's the same. I just had this conversation on a funding panel this week. It's not that different from engaging with private capital. You're working with public agency. It's about relationship development. You find something of interest, and as much as possible, engage with the technology transfer officers, the PEI, the researcher, to begin to develop a relationship and express your interest in collaborating to bring this invention into really into life. And that starting that process as early as possible gives more runway to build, the basic human elements of trust and open communication. It's something that we identify is a lot more helpful to build that early on, show that you have interest in having that scientist even a part of your team from the very beginning, as well as having external partners, commercialization, people who are actually in the industry, subject matter experts, getting people's feedback way before you invest a lot of time around building a company around this thing that you think where it fits. Because the number one advocate for any of these technologies is most likely going to be the scientist who invented it, the person who has poured their life. It's like their idea baby. And talk to some people in the lab tech transfer space that really emphasize like how much of a process it is for a scientist to let go of that idea and hand it off to someone. And they don't, they're not, like I said, it's not super incentivized to do that. And there's a lot of scientists that over time they felt like burned by this experience of handing over their invention to some big corporation that does whatever with it, that they're feel good, want this thing to help the world in some way, and it's taken and they have no control over it. So I would say number one is develop the relationships, bring people into your ideation process that are directly impacted, by this. So building a team beyond your who's going to help me build this thing. Folks like public, private capital, connections that would have an interest in this particular vertical. Also, there's of course, there's an advantage to working in a team, and the idea of doing this in a cohort, being able to bounce ideas off of each other, is something that Labstart's really excited to move towards a more refined cohort, because there's going to be moments where you realize actually this IP, this technology is not going to work in the market right now. And so what else is there? So having that explore, fail fast mentality and not be really, really attached to one patent when you're actually trying to solve a problem. Find what patents or combination of patents actually fit best.
I love that. Yeah, I think, pivoting around these and exploring the actual application of these processes is huge. And there is such a vast library, as we've mentioned, of like tools, effectively technologies that are just sitting on the shelf, and deeply underutilized. So let's talk about I'd love to hear a little bit more about like the Labstart program and how you are helping people, work with this infrastructure that can be at times fraught and full of conflict.
And it doesn't have to be, right? Like part of Labstart's vision is that this can be a more enjoyable process, and having some sort of external entity that's more of a liaison and a buffer between the individual, like looking at one specific problem, and then the lab as a whole, having Labstart develop and kind of grease the wheels on the relationships is going to be helpful in the long run, because one individual person coming up, a big corporation that wants a patent, like they just don't have that mass and that team behind them. So the fellowship is 12 months of mentorship. The first 3 months, it's really into 2 phases, but the first 3 months is more accelerator, like entrepreneurship curriculum to get anyone involved, regardless of their past experience, up to speed on the fundamentals of commercialization, entrepreneurship, customer discovery, licensing, the whole thing. What are you going to engage with in this process? The second phase of the program is really once an individual has squarely landed with a patent or combo of patents that they would like to license, is surrounding that individual by that team that I mentioned with the subject matter expert, legal expertise, fractional support that would actually help them get from this has potential to, here's a commercialization plan that helps me negotiate with the lab. And Labstart is along that entire process with the individuals. And so there's two pipelines that we talk about for the program that we're really focused on matchmaking. There's the technology pipeline, trying to help vet, like put a lot of energy into finding technologies that are ready and exciting, and investors are curious about and would like to see move into the marketplace. So finding the technologies and raising those into the awareness of, hey, consider these. And then the other pipeline is the entrepreneurs that would like to engage in climate solutions and climate tech, but may not have either a full team, an idea, may not even have a company yet, or they're individuals that have attempted something that they needed to pivot and find something else. So there's a recognition that not every startup is going into this like 100% we can do this for the rest of our lives phase, right? There's a lot of cycling around ideas, and this fellowship is a place to kind of sort through where to start. So we're at a super early stage in the whole scope of climate incubators, accelerators, and our program would essentially seed someone with their earliest like stages in starting a company, and also have them like surrounded by the support network to do so.
Awesome. There's a few good questions in here, and I think I'll start with this one. Only startups that are interested in a technology from a national lab could commercialize and come to Labstart, or do you have already created relationships with the labs to like pull those applications and licenses for technology, I assume?
Is this in the open questions where he's
your team has been super diligent in answering
cool.
questions,
Okay.
but I want to highlight a few of them so
Yeah.
folks who are not necessarily in the
I found it.
can talk about it.
Okay. They've already created. So yeah, so we're looking to engage with the earliest stage individuals or startups that have not, I guess, are really looking to commercialize some sort of technology, and we're helping seed them with the short list of potential technologies, and also help them through the process of sorting through it on their own. So we're not fully limited to national labs. That's where we're starting to explore this. But if individuals, in our pilot cohort, for example, that's running right now, individuals are working with university technology. So this entire process is equivalent, there's an equivalent process in the university world with different levers and different challenges, but similarly unique to each organization. So there's no need to actually have, I think the question maybe is, do they need to have a relationship with the labs? The answer is no, the individual does not need to have a relationship. That's what Labstart's offering, is that doorway, that we've created those relationships and will make that easier for an individual to engage.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit, right? So that they don't have to go and find that and build it out and develop it. So another great question here that I think just deserves a good chat as well is, how do you identify if the patent technology is a good fit for your startup? What if it looks like a fit on paper during the application and then it doesn't end up working out?
Great question. That is essentially the point of the fellowship, right? So encouraging an individual in the application process, if anyone here has checked it out, labstart.xyz/apply. There we've presented a short list of technologies that we've essentially pre-vetted with the broader community. And those technologies are more than likely not the technology that an individual is going to commercialize, but it's a starting point to understand tangibly how to go through this product market fit and, customer inquiry process, with something more tangible than I care about this field of solutions. So, it might be a good fit when we say on paper, in the patent. Some patents do a much better job at describing the actual impact that technology will have. Some don't even list the impact at all. So that's up for an individual during the fellowship to explore in that first phase. So in the first 3 months. So we'll be encouraging and helping people run through, this sounds amazing. Is it amazing? By what metrics in the market is it amazing? Both impact, market, and readiness. So there's a big range on the amount of information that's available around each patent. So that can be limiting, and it's more of a place to start from.
Awesome. That's great to know. Another one, if we have a technology and are looking to partner with federal labs, potentially licensing tech from them that's relevant to ours, is that feasible as well? And maybe another vein of this is like, is it interesting for applicants to bring their own technology to the program? Or should you just be like, hey, I want to solve a problem, I'm going to sign up?
Yeah, I want to say yes. I don't know if I can let Troy or Deepa chime in here if you have thoughts on that. But if you already have a company and there's some sort of additional technology that's needed to actually implement your solution, whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be core to your solution. If you want to engage in the licensing process at all, then I would say it's relevant. And we are, a part of our nonprofit's goal is to help streamline and demystify this process overall. So we don't necessarily need individuals coming in at the exact same place, and we can support the engagement with labs in many different ways.
The only thing I would add to that, and Megan captured the vast majority of it, but as you consider if Labstart is right for you, know that we are trying to build the earliest steps on your entrepreneurial journey. So there are many other accelerators that support incorporated companies with already proven technology, and teams of people. And so, if you're off and running with your company and your technology, there might be many more other accelerators that would be a better fit. So we just ask you to, kind of be thoughtful about where you are in your journey.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Deepa. And for the Labstart team, if you all wish to come on video when you're talking, you are very welcome to. We didn't banish you. But no pressure either way. There's a good question here in terms of I think it's a good two-part question, in fact. Are there restrictions on company origin? And I think alongside that, should you have a company incorporated if you're applying for the program, or is this for just individuals to apply?
We are primarily building it for individuals, with anticipating that most will not have a company incorporated yet. If you have a company incorporated, but you don't actually have a business model or a business plan, you're still at that earliest possible stage, then it would still be appropriate. So we will help walk people through in the second phase of the program, incorporating, if that's not something that you've done yet. So it's not a hard yes or no, but it's, again, kind of to build off what Deepa said, just an inquiry of how early in your process are you, and specificity around what you're working on is great, but if you don't actually have any sort of MVP that's wrapped around a technology and you're looking to bring that in, then it might still be appropriate. So it's an it depends answer. And then I think there was what country of origin, right? That came up. And so yeah, this is an interesting one that we're going to have to navigate as a team. typically to license US national lab technology, you need to be based in the US or a US citizen. So there are routes we're offering in our program for this year that we are requiring that individuals are at minimum based in the US for the entirety of the program for the year. So we're just not equipped as a staff to work across, international time zones, all the things. But if you want to bring in a university technology, that is a workaround from citizenship, not being a US citizen, or it's not hard and fast is what we've gotten feedback from the labs on. It's not absolutely you have to be a US citizen to license this. There's just extra steps and other considerations. So a clear workaround that we're proposing is to engage with university technology, which is much more equipped to support international company owners.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
There's a question here that I think maybe conflates a couple things together, which I think is great. It's what does Labstart do, if anything, with SBIRs in the tech transfer context? Would love to get your take on that.
Yeah, a part of this whole year fellowship together will be supporting individuals in applying for federal funding, state funding, things like SBIR, engaging with the SBIR program. There's in the tech transfer context, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but we would be assisting individuals once they're, focused on their solution that they're building a company around, in seeding that person the funding opportunities that are coming up, that are appropriate for them, and helping them understand how do you apply to grants. Go talk to Sadale. And really seeing like what's a good fit for that individual based on the skills they're coming in with, or the skills that they would need to develop.
Yeah, and I'll speak a little bit more to this because
Sure.
I think one thing that's important to recognize is SBIR as a program is generally it's a funding program for small businesses doing research. STTR, on the other hand, may be more of an appropriate program in the tech transfer concept, and allows you to partner and really go down that like university pathway with university technology. But either way, ultimately, as you're doing some kind of lab to market commercialization, you're going to need to raise money, and SBIR can be part of that stack.
Yep.
For sure. And so there can be some very exciting opportunities to go deeper and partner with agencies when you reach that point of raising capital. Another good question here is an individual who says, I have some really great technology. How would I fit into this program? So I think, we've talked about this a little bit, but I would love to get your take on what I think the real question to answer here is at what stage is sort of like the ideal applicant that you're looking for with the Labstart program? Like, are you looking for people who just are, they're kind of like, I want to solve a problem, don't quite know where I'm at? Or are you looking for entrepreneurs who like have an idea, but they don't have the wherewithal to solve it yet? Like, where should they be in their journey, ideally? And maybe this is maybe it's a depends answer, but
It is mostly because we want to be able to support those that we feel best equipped to support, and so it's a part of kind of matchmaking the cohort as a whole as well. To see this is our first full recruitment round. The other pilots have been like more discreet, partnered with other organizations. So this is the first like big call to anyone who's interested in this. So part of this is going to be matchmaking a cohort that's at a similar stage to one another. I would say individuals that have a passion about a particular solution area that are not like, I think I'd like to start a climate company today. Let me look and see what the options are, that have gone further than that, or have pivoted from some, background that they realize actually would like to dig deeper in this like solution space, or there's a parallel here to my experience. You don't have to have a pedigree in this technology. We're definitely looking wider than that. You don't have to have direct expertise in this technology field, but the like relevant experience to feel motivated to start a company and something hard. Like commercialization is hard, hard tech is hard, all of these things. So you have to have that internal fire to really care about an area to want to build a company around it. So it is open. I'm curious if Deepa has anything to add to that. As we refine who we're looking for, it's also, we're figuring that out as well.
Yeah. I guess, back to like why Labstart was even created. It's because there are so many different accelerators and incubators and funders who really want great ideas and great people and diverse people applying to their programs, but know that you need to have a technology that's developed to a certain degree and a beautiful pitch and a team that's a rock star team. We noticed that there are a lot of people that kind of got stuck in the middle. They're like really qualified people that are motivated and talented, but maybe got stuck. And sorry, on the other side of this, there's all those funders, all those incubators, the vast majority of them are saying our doors are open. We just need you to get a little bit further before you can even qualify for our application. And so, these are like the activates, the prime coalitions, breakthrough energies of the world. So our goal as an organization is to really bridge that gap. So like, if you can qualify for the activates, the prime coalitions, the breakthrough energies of the world, it's like you should apply to them. What we're doing is trying to fill in this. We're at the very beginning of this ecosystem and trying to bridge the gap to the SBIRs, to the to this like vast ecosystem. So I would say like the people who are right for people who are saying like, I really want to start a company, but I'm not an inventor. I have what it takes to do all the things. I just need some core technology to attach myself to, and I need some help finding it. If you say like, hey, I'm alone, but I know I can do this. Maybe I need a technology and a co-founder to be able to apply for one of those places. That's where Labstart is for you. If you have your eye on a specific technology, but you're an outsider to an organization, to an institution, to a national lab, to a university, and you're just like, I see a lot of potential in this particular technology. I've been tracking it for a year, but I don't quite know how to take the steps to license it. Labstart wants to help you license it. So those are the kinds of people that we're and the stage that we're trying to support, because it is generally under supported in our ecosystem, and we want to help you figure out like we're the first we're the first lap in the mile. There are many others that are supporting your second and third.
I love that.
Great.
One thing I want to throw out there, because I'm seeing this sort of light trend or commonality in some of the comments or questions that are coming in. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about this, which is that I think at its core, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because this could be a wrong or incorrect statement, but I think at its core, Labstart, is really well suited for folks who are, as Deepa just explained, kind of, they feel like they've got all the things, but they need, some technology to leverage to make that happen. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs who might have their own technologies, there's probably better or other programs where they might find a better fit. Is that a good characterization of like Labstart versus the rest of the ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And we fully intend to make sure that anyone exiting out of Labstart is potentially lined up with one of those downstream accelerators so that they're, that's more equipped to help a company that's already, has the wheels turning. And so there's, in my like big vision of how this all works together, like it would be beautiful if all the accelerators, behind the scenes were actually helping people move through this. We're all interested in accelerating, well, many of us, climate innovations or supporting entrepreneurs through these challenging stages. And so Labstart is at this earliest initiation of just pulling that technology out from the lab and starting a company around it. And then there's many organizations that help with the maturation of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. One thing that's come up, there's a couple other comments that I see this trend in, and I would love to get your thoughts on. So it's my understanding that you can, and I've seen it implemented in other, like for the Cal Testbed program, for example, where you can work with our national lab infrastructure to help test and develop your technology.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true first?
There are user facilities that people can engage with, that I know are available. I know less about those. But it is possible. That's not the direction, I guess, that we're
No, I just want to, there's a general couple questions that have come up about just like the national lab infrastructure.
I'll add a link to the chat. Deepa, did you have something to say?
Oh, you're muted there.
Sorry, I wanted to confirm that yes, like Cal Testbed is a great program. It, has 70 plus laboratories that you can test your own technology that wasn't developed in-house. There are other programs that are spin-ins. Activate is also a spin-in. So there are other programs that if you have technology that you've invented, in your garage, outside of the labs that you can utilize. That is, part of the Labstart program is figuring out how you validate the technology. But but if you already have your technology, there are maybe other programs that would be a better fit for you to go to.
I wonder, do you have any, no pressure, because we can dig this up later, but any thoughts on like the best way? So say you're an entrepreneur and you already have your tech, you've got your NSF funding, but you're looking to partner with one of these labs to do something specific. Any thoughts on like the best way to go about that? And I have some suggestions too, but.
I mean, I'm not like the expert on all the other people's programs, but there are lab embedded entrepreneurship programs, leap nodes. There's Westgate and Chain Reaction. Each lab has their own cyclotron road. Each lab has their own leap node, and those are specific 2-year-long programs where it is all about integrating into the lab and utilizing the resources and developing a CRADA with the labs. There are also programs outside of that. Each lab kind of operates independently.
You just used an acronym, CRADA. And I think some people will know what that is, but if you could just clarify what that is.
Oh, good question. I forgot. Because
I will be perfectly honest with you. I conceptually sort of think I know what it is, but I also don't know what it is.
No, sorry.
So a CRADA it's a cooperative research and development agreement. So typically it's with an outside entity to the labs, like typically a private entity, where basically it's an agreement to do R&D work together from like typically a private company and the lab. Typically these are kind of expensive things to do with the lab. So a lot of these are done by much larger corporate companies, but there are programs like Deepa mentioned, like Leap Nodes, where you can have DOE fund that CRADA for you, where you can be having it's government sponsored to do that research and development at the labs.
Thank you, Troy. Look at you, man.
No problem.
Just
I try.
clutch. So awesome. All right. Well, hopefully that answered some of y'all's questions. I know there was a few folks who had come in and said, hey, what about our new technology? Like, how is that interesting to the lab ecosystem? We are coming up on just 10 minutes left here. And I think, there's a couple of additional questions in here that were interesting. Let's just do a really basic one here. How do we contact Labstart? How do you get in touch? And we'll send this as links with the follow-up email. So don't worry, everyone, but go. How do you contact Labstart?
Well, the primary link that we'd want folks to, that have any interest in this, is our open application period right now, which is going to provide a ton of information on this link. I'm going to send, actually, Troy, will you type that to Sadale, the apply link, but you can also contact me directly with my email, which is megan@labstart.xyz. If there's interest in the program, I would say please look at our informational. We have a slide deck that really walks through the details of what this fellowship looks like and what we're offering and providing. There's we're going to have a webinar at the beginning of January as well to do some more direct questions around the fellowship. Thank you. And yeah, there's many ways in which we have a large partner ecosystem to be able to hone in once individuals are selected for the cohort for the right support team for each of those individuals. If you are more interested in supporting or engaging with this whole process on the partner side, definitely reach out, and there's lots of room.
Awesome. I love that. We're going to do like a final sort of call to action. I'm gonna like flag that for you so that I'm gonna ask you to like if they can take away one thing from this, what should they do? But there's one other question here that I think is interesting and we'll love to hear your thoughts. There's an individual here who's talking about, not only do they want to work on building a solution, but they're looking to rebuild a team to build that solution. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what, if anything, does Labstart provide in terms of building your team? And or if that's like not part of what you're doing. You're just like arming individuals, getting those companies in place.
Yeah. And I would say this is true of all accelerator programs, like co-founder matching team, finding team members to engage on a project together in more than I help you here and there, but like I would like to build this together, is a huge part of the building a business process. And we'll be supporting individuals in that co-founder matching process through a lot of our partners are interested in this as well. So by giving airtime and attention to what everyone in the program is working on, will be fundamentally a part of who else out there in the ecosystem is interested in this or might be a good match for this individual or complementary to their skills. So again, a lot of that will be refined once we start to engage, with the cohort and see who's bringing what, who needs what kind of partner. Maybe someone is like the perfect actual CTO, the technology person, and they're not the CEO personality, but they're getting it started. And so they need to bring in that part or vice versa. There's a lot of ways in which making sure that, by the end of the year, individuals find, who their early team members might be is a huge win.
The only thing I want to add to that is that, we know the entrepreneurial journey is nonlinear. And sometimes it does make sense to go back to the beginning. And if you find yourself at the beginning, you will have, some scars and you'll have a lot of lessons, but we would welcome you at Labstart. I would just again ask you to make sure that it feels like a good fit for you as well, because sometimes going back to the beginning is only going back to the beginning for a small part of it. And if you're not on the journey with everyone else who's at the beginning, then then it's not a great fit. Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Well, I think there's a few questions. We'll do a little lightning round and then we'll do that kind of call to action. Just a few questions on eligibility. And so one is, are US permanent residents able to apply? Folks with like a green card.
Yes.
And then another is there's someone from the Northern Mariana Islands, which is a US territory in the Western Pacific Ocean near Guam. Can they participate?
I would say if this feels like a really good fit for you, we are open to it. There's some like edges around figuring this out, but there will be multiple in-person experiences throughout the year. So it is a hybrid program. So majority of, a lot of the content would be virtual. But if they're able to, support themselves, with travel, that kind of thing extends us as far as being able to support. We have a travel scholarship that's basically kind of dependent on where everyone's going to be based across the US. So if you're not on the mainland, that it may not be a hard no, but would be curious if you would be able to engage in things like the kickoff, and so open to it, especially if it's like, this is exactly what I was looking for, this is what I'm trying to do. We are open to talking to you. So.
Beautiful. Well, Megan and team, Deepa, Troy, thank you all so much for being here. This is super exciting what you're doing, and I hope that everyone who joined in had their questions answered. If not, we will be sending a variety of follow-ups. This will be available, as mentioned, via YouTube, blog. So if you registered, you're getting an email with a bunch of useful links and information. Yeah, Megan, this is your like, final words of wisdom to the folks on the call here. What should folks do after listening to this? If they're pumped up, ready to get working, what's like top 2 things they should do like right now?
I don't know, maybe some like jumping jacks to like keep that energy going. And also sit with, if you are ready for this kind of deep dive for a year, please do check out our website and all of those materials. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly. We really want to build a program that is like deeply helpful for individuals that are engaging with this at the start of their journey. So this is we're making sure that the partners and anyone involved in this is also centered around this being a human journey. Not we're hyper focused on the business, we're hyper focused on you. Where are you at? What do you need? And if this kind of support in launching would really transform your journey, please apply.
Awesome. All right, y'all heard Megan. Please apply. And thank you so much. We will see y'all next month for another one of these, if it's something that you're into. And we will be following up with an email, and that'll have all these links. Will it have your email in it, Megan?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. So it'll have all the great contact information, and we look forward to hearing anybody's additional thoughts and feedback. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a lovely
Joining.
day.
Thanks for having us, Adele.
Bye.
Bye.